Today's episode of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast is brought to you by Port Richards Cafe, TechSense Senior Residential Care Homes, ATD Painting, and Performance Food Group. Port Richards Cafe, Plano's oldest restaurant since 1973. They are open daily from 5:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m., serving the three most important meals of the day: breakfast, lunch, and dessert. It is true Texas home-style cooking made with love and grit. That is Port Richards Cafe, located off of Avenue K in Plano. This podcast is also brought to you by TechSense Senior Residential Care Homes, senior care at its best with a family atmosphere. They specialize in making their facilities as close to a home living experience as possible. Not only that, there are no move-in fees and there are no visitation restrictions. They are located near I-635 in Marsh Lane in Dallas, right near Carrollton. For more information, you can call 469-400-7650. That is TechSense Senior Residential Care Homes. And now, let's podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast. My name is Matt Welch. I'm the sports editor at Star Local Media, and I am being joined by Justin Thomas and Bryan Murphy. And gentlemen, Week 8 of high school football season is upon us, so as is the case at this juncture every week this season, let's talk about some of the biggest games on the docket. As per usual, that means starting with our game of the week, so thank you to everybody who voted in the poll on our website, starlocalmedia.com. Very much a two-horse race this time around between Lone Star and the Colony and Coppell and Marcus. Went right down to the wire, but ultimately it is that heavyweight showdown out in District 5-5A Division 1 between the Rangers and the Cougars that gets the nod. So here we go, Lone Star versus the Colony. I mean, this one has been circled on the district schedule right since the very start. You kind of had an idea that early on the Stars were kind of aligning that this might be your de facto district championship matchup, and sure enough, it appears that we have reached that point. You know, both teams are 5-1 overall in the season, 3-0 in district play, have looked nothing short of dominant in their own unique ways. So let's talk about a very fascinating matchup between two completely contrasting brands of football. Because I'm not sure you can find a greater matchup of just dominant offense versus dominant defense in Class 5A.
Yeah, something has to give.
Yeah.
The Colony's averaging almost 50 points per game. Lone Star's giving up less than 6 points per game. That's insane.
45.8 against 5.2. I think
that is insane.
Those are both number one amongst Class 5A teams in the Metroplex. The Colony has the top scoring offense, and Lone Star is the top scoring defense.
I just wanted to say, for starters, I'm jealous of you that there's all these big 6A games and that you're covering this one, because I really wanted to see this one. If there was ever a need for a Thursday Frisco ISD game, I wish it was this one so I could see this game.
It's Friday.
No, I wish it was Thursday so I could see it.
It's at Toyota Stadium, though, so I mean, we're going to be outside. It's not at the Star. Hopefully the weather's not too cold.
I'd still rather get a chance to watch it.
Yeah, maybe this one will get rained out. Maybe late in the stretch.
There you go.
I hope not, because we need to get a resolution to this matchup. Just looking at some numbers on paper just about these two, because that is kind of the matchup to watch in this, is the Colony's offense versus Lone Star's defense, which, like you said, Bryan, something's got to give. I mean, you have the Colony, which is maybe about as balanced an offense as you'll find in terms of just production. Mm-hmm. They're number one in the Metroplex amongst 5A programs in yards per game at 465. Here's how that's split up: 233 passing, 232 rushing.
Yeah.
It is literally as balanced as it gets.
Never thought you'd see that from a Colony team.
I mean, kind of talk about. I mean, you've been following the Colony for a long time, and this has very much been an offense that thrives on the run game. But they've mixed in this massive big play element, through the air. Just talk a bit about kind of the evolution of the Colony's offense.
Yeah, they've always been a ground and pound team, and to be honest, when you talk to Rudy Rangel, this is really a weird feeling for him. He's not used to having an offense and having to call passing plays like this and having explosive plays. It's not what he would prefer his offense to look like, but I'm sure he's going to take it when he has these kind of skill players on that side of the ball.
I mean, everyone talks about Miles Price, but Keith Miller is a stud. I saw him play against Reedy, the one-handed grab in the end zone. That was replayed everywhere. It even made Sports Center top 10. Dude, he's a beast, and he's only a junior, right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
He and Miles Price are both juniors, and I think one thing about this offense is it was obviously a major bummer last year when Jamel Jones went down before the season with his season-ending injury and didn't get to play at all. But I really think when you look at the skill set and the talent on this offense, I really think they're benefiting from Harrington getting that year of playing quarterback last year. I don't think this offense would be clicking quite the same if he didn't have that year of experience under his belt last year.
And it's really shown. I mean, they've scored at least 42 points in their past 4 games. They've only been held under 42 once all season, and that was the game that you just alluded to against Frisco Reedy. They really thrive on the big play. They have 20 offensive touchdowns of at least 25 yards.
Yeah.
And you contrast that with a Lone Star defense that is just suffocating in the truest sense of the word. I mean, we just mentioned, 5.2 points allowed this season. Number 1 scoring defense, only 184 yards. Number 7 overall defense. I mean, on the ground, we just mentioned, what the Colony's traditionally been able to do on the ground. It's probably a good year to have been able to mix in a passing game because, Frisco Lone Star is only allowing 52 yards per game on the ground. Brian, where does it all start with this defense? Just what contributes to them being just as airtight as they are on that side of the ball?
It's the secondary.
Yeah.
They bend, don't break. They'll allow some first downs. They'll move the chains on them, but they don't give up a home run ball. That's a thing that I think could be a main difference maker in this game is Miles Price. I don't think he's going to have the home run, 50-yard touchdown. He has every game he has a 70-yard touchdown, 50-yard touchdown. Keith Miller will have a 40-yard touchdown, things like that. Abdallah will run for 150 yards. He'll break a big run. They may get some of those yards, but Lone Star is not going to give up that deep threat, that's devastating touchdown.
One thing I will say is a lot of the deep threat is a lot of run after catch, though. It's not necessarily deep balls getting behind the defense. It's a lot of just they're going to have to tackle really well.
Yeah, and the Lone Star, they've been known for their linebackers for the past 4 years. Nick Bolton and Noah Velis are guys that are playing Division I college football. Nick Bolton over in Missouri in the SEC playing football right now.
Talking to Coach Rangel earlier, that was kind of when he was looking at the film, which by the way he said he's not watching any more film. He's tired of watching it. He's seen what he needs to see. He's tired of watching film. He just wants to get this game. But he said, going into it, they thought linebacker was maybe an area they can exploit after Lone Star lost a couple of all-state players last year. But he said, looking at the film, that's not the case. The guys that they've brought in to replace those all-staters are pretty much playing at that same level too. So
Torrin Pittman and Jalen Ford, they've been lights out filling in those roles. Their secondary is the strength of this team. Not Julian Laird, he's the quarterback. He was cornerback last year, but Trey Taylor, I should say, all-state safety. He's the leader of the defense. He's been phenomenal. Elias Hernandez, he's been phenomenal at cornerback. Ryan Richard, those guys. And when I talked to Coach Rayburn yesterday, actually, I think that's going to be the matchup. The secondary against the Colony's, explosive receivers, Miles Price, Keith Miller, Abdallah. That last line of defense for Lone Star, they're not going to give up too much. The only time they've given up double-digit points all season was 10 points to the 2-time defending state champions Highland Park.
Yep.
So, something's got to give in this game, and I can't wait.
I guess before we get into kind of looking at Lone Star's defense or offense and the Colony's defense a little more, you mentioned Trey Taylor, and this game, special teams could have a big impact in this game, and you have 2 really big-time special teams players. You mentioned Taylor. He has 7 kicks blocked on the year, and then Miles Price for the Colony has 2 kick returns for touchdowns already this year, so something could be a given there.
I have a feeling they won't be kicking to Price.
Because that is wild. You mentioned, maybe
they won't be kicking any extra points either.
Maybe so.
But, the Highland Park, scored 10 points, and that's the most that they've given up all season. You look elsewhere throughout their schedule. Richland, 2 points. Denton, 6 points. Little Elm, 7 points. Wakeland, 0. Independence, 6. Some of those touchdowns, the touchdown against Highland Park came in the first 2 minutes, and then they shut them down the rest of the way. Yeah. And then, like against Denton and stuff, that came in garbage time. And Independence came late in the game. Or Independence actually was their first drive, I believe, and then they shut them out the rest of the way. Yeah. So it's not like, they're making adjustments or anything like that and figuring this Lone Star defense out. They're either getting scored on right away or they're getting scored on in garbage time, and that's it. This defense is really stout. You just alluded to the Lone Star offense, and how's this for a stat? We talked about Miles Price and just the outstanding season that he's having in all phases. He has 17 total touchdowns this season. The Lone Star offense overall has 19.
Yeah, this isn't, like I said, they graduated a lot of guys on defense. They also graduated a lot of guys on offense. MJ Rivers, the most notable. They plug in Julian Larry, who was a cornerback last year, first year as a quarterback this year. And he struggled. I'm not going to lie. He he's not turning the ball over, but he's not really moving the chains how they have in the past with guys like MJ Rivers and Jason Shelley. Granted, it's tough shoes to fill, but they also don't have Kirby Bennett. And Darren Smith, he's been off and on this year. He's missed some time earlier in the year. It's been kind of hard, acclimating him back into the lineup. He hasn't been that explosive running back that he has been in years past when he was, the newcomer of the year and utility player of the year and all those, accolades that he got. So, but they still have Marvin Mims.
Yeah.
And he's awesome. He missed a game against Wakeland, but he came back with a vengeance, had over 100 receiving yards, scored a touchdown last week against Independence. He had a kick return for a touchdown against Little Elm. That was their only touchdown against Little Elm. So he is no doubt about it their most dynamic player.
Colony knows all about him. He had a huge game against the Cougars in the playoffs last year, a couple touchdowns and I think like 140 yards. So that's obviously going to be a focus for the Colony there, and Miles Price in the secondary as well.
Still speaking about Miles Price, I had an interesting quote from Coach Rayburn. He was talking about how he's dynamic, home run hitter every time he touches the ball, and then he goes, quote, "Unfortunately, Price isn't the only great player they have."
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really interesting quote because, like the guys we all mentioned. But really, their defense gets really not as much respect as their offense. So who are some of the guys on defense that they got to watch out for?
Well, Coach Rangel's really pumped on how the defensive line is playing. They have 5 guys they rotate there: Marcus Moore, Stephen McCollum, Zion Sterling, Kyer Warner, and Dom Puentes. So they've done a good job up front. And talking to Coach Rangel, he really feels that especially the first half against Heritage, a Heritage team that's put up some respectable scores against.
They have a really good quarterback too. Yeah.
So he was really pleased, especially the first half. They were able to shut down Heritage there. But it's not just the front, the defensive line there. Of course, you have Miles Price, Calvin Baker in the secondary, and then linebackers Derek Green. He has 5 sacks. Wade Simmons has 7 sacks. So their linebackers can get after the quarterback too. Like I said, Rangel is really pleased with kind of how this group is coming along. There was some question marks and some holes to fill coming into the year, but they're really progressing in. Kind of like Lone Star. I know Rangel's really hyping the defensive line, but the Colony's secondary is pretty stout as well. Especially with Cameron Pear. I didn't mention Cameron Pear, but he's having a great year back there as well.
How important do you guys think it is, as far as just kind of dictating momentum in a game like this, as far as which team strikes first, how important is it for the Colony to be the team that does that? I feel like just the way these two teams are built, the onus is kind of on the Colony to show that their offense can...
I think I would agree with that, with showing that they can score on that defense, especially after the... they lost 41-16 last year.
Yeah.
It was a better game than that. It was 14-9 at halftime, I think. It was a more competitive game than that, but the final score was 41-16. So I think they've been looking forward to, I think both teams have been looking forward to this game, to be honest.
Absolutely.
But I think the Colonies really had this one circled, and I think getting out to a good start will be really key for them, just from a confidence
the Lone Star's
perspective.
proven that they can weather the storm right at the beginning of a game. They did it against Highland Park. They did it last week against Independence. I think they're going to have to sustain something going into the second half, which is what teams haven't been able to do against Lone Star. So I think, not only does the Colony need to jump out on them early, get some, big-time plays, deep balls and whatnot, but I think they're going to have to come out firing, in the second half. Maybe, get the ball first in the second half. Who knows? The first drive of the second half to start the third quarter, get some kind of big play, or else they're not going to have much success against Lone Star.
If you need any sort of precedent, as far as like the Colony potentially maybe throwing in a little trickery to just kind of make an early statement, in their win over Frisco Centennial earlier in the season, they dialed up a double reverse pass that led to Mikey Harrington finding Keith Miller for a long touchdown and that was for like 2-3 minutes into the game. So be on the who knows? Be on the lookout for a little bit of trickery though, because that's definitely something, if you can kind of catch him napping, that maybe to make an early statement with a bit of a...
You definitely see that in a game like this. When you maybe if you're struggling in your first few drives against such a good defense, you whip out all the stops in big games like this.
I also wanted to mention Colony fans, if you're worried about Jaden Abdallah not playing last week against Heritage, Coach Rangel said that was kind of a precautionary thing. They wanted to make sure he was totally fresh for this one, but they also wanted to see what they had from Calvin Baker in the backfield, and he had 6 carries for like 150 yards and a touchdown. And also Simmons, who's kind of going to be the heir apparent next year when Abdallah leaves. They wanted to get a little work for him, so he had 60 yards rushing. So more precautionary. Rangel said Abdallah is going to be full go for this one. So
did they just have a running back factory in the Colony?
They do have a running back factory.
They build these running backs in the factory.
They're like Alabama. How many? So I guess last before we get to picks, like how many points do you think Lone Star's offense needs in this game?
21.
It seems like
somewhere in the low 20s.
Because there's just something about the optics of, like, when you look at just these gaudy, like, shootouts that the Colony is able to, to pull out versus, Lone Star, and something about, like, a 14-0 or a 17-6 or just it plays on your optics a little bit different. But nevertheless, I was curious, though, as to what you think the baseline is for what Lone Star's offense needs to do to get.
If Lone Star didn't have such a good defense, I think they'd have 2 or 3 losses under their belt right now. Mm-hmm. And that's not. Their offense has struggled. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. They only put up 14 against Wakeland. They only put up 10 against Little Elm. They only scored 7 against Highland Park. Granted, those are 3 good teams, but the offensive production, was lackluster in those 3 games. The Colony's no slouch. And if they don't put up, the Colony's obviously going to score. They're not going to be shut out. Like most of these teams, They're going to at least score somewhere in the range of 17 to maybe 24 points, at least.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you another question about Larry. That's the quarterback.
Julian Larry.
Last year, MJ Rivers is awesome. Right?
Yeah,
he really had his way with his legs. He had 4 rushing touchdowns in that game. Is Larry kind of bring some of that to the table as well?
Oh yeah, Larry's a starting guard on the basketball team. He's long. He's longer than you think. From afar, he looks like a smaller version of MJ Rivers. And then you see him up close, you're like, all right, this guy's pretty long. He's bulked up a little bit, but he's just still progressing at that quarterback position. They're still getting acclimated with each other. But if they can get some big plays through the air, which is something they've struggled with, and get MJ Rivers, get Ifo Pair, going in this game, I think they can. I don't want to say a shootout, a 24, 21 shootout. But that's what I'm saying. A shootout normally isn't 24. But for this type of game, for Lone Star's game, I think they're going to have a somewhat of a shootout.
Well, I know Rangel thinks that Larry has a big game in him, and he's just hoping it doesn't come against them this week. But he says, looking at him on the film, the potential is definitely there.
Larry's coming off of his best game.
Yeah, he showed some signs last week against Independence. Yeah, I got the numbers right in front of me.
He said he's got a 400-yard game coming in him.
Ooh, I
hope it's not
I don't know about
us.
that. He had a little over 200 against Independence, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. And Rayburn told me it was by far his best game of the season. In person and in the stat sheet. Who knows? Maybe it may translate to the Colony. I don't know if he's got an MJ Rivers numbers in him with 8 touchdowns in a game, but if he can build off that and have another similar performance, doesn't turn the ball over, moves the chains, can find the end zone 2 or 3 times, Lone Star wins this game.
So let's get to that. Who do you guys see coming out on top?
I'm sticking with the Colony. I don't even need those 21 points you offered. We were doing our picks earlier.
That's right. This is a carryover from
I will pick Lone Star, and I picked them in the picket line, and I'll also give you a score. 21-20. It's gonna go down to the wire. Someone's gonna miss an extra point, and maybe Trey Taylor blocks one early in the game, and it's gonna come down to that.
What contributed to you picking the Colony over Lone Star?
I don't think Lone Star can slow them. I know they have an awesome defense, but I think the Colony is going to find ways to get the ball to Miller and Price in space. I think Abdallah can move the chains enough, and I don't think they can slow them, and I don't think their offense is good enough to keep pace with the Colony.
Wow.
That's Sam McCord. What led do you pick?
I'm going to say 31-20.
31 points on Lone Star. Defense wins championships, and they only scored 23 against Reedy. Well, again, defense like this, giving up 5 points a game. But a team that scored only 23 points against Reedy, and Reedy's a really good team. But I think Lone Star's defense is even better than Reedy's. So, defense wins championships in this instance.
On Friday night at Toyota Stadium.
This should be a fun game.
I know. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Who do you think's going to win?
I went with Lone Star as well, and it's more just I don't know if it's just the reputation of Lone Star that kind of fed into this, but I think what they did to Highland Park that kind of showed that it's not just like a symptom of the schedule that they can.
Yeah, that was an impressive.
They can slow down a real high-powered offense when push comes to shove. Had that performance not happened, I think I might have been more tempted to take the Colony because there is something to be said for just how eye-popping their offensive production is, but I do think that that Highland Park game gave me a little bit more pause. That I think they're a bit more suited to slow down what the Colony is going to have in store. So I don't know what the score is going to be. I don't think it's going to be 10-7 or whatever like Highland Park and Lone Star was.
Well, Rangel joked that it was going to be 58-0, and he doesn't know how they're going to score. But I know he's just sandbagging a little bit. I'm not buying it, Coach. I'll pick up for you guys.
Just the reverse psychology.
Yeah. No, but he was raving about the Lone Star defense. He said they're an incredible unit.
Yeah. I mean, if at this point of the season you still have allowed 5.2 points per game. I mean, you were doing something special on that side of the ball. So
imagine if they had Nick Bolton there in the middle. Oh my gosh, no one would ever score against them.
It would be interesting. I wonder how many teams have given up more points than Lone Star in one game this year.
Oh, wow.
It's got to be like 75, 80%.
Oh, yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yeah, that's nuts. So let's you and I are going with Lone Star. JT, you're with the Colony. As far as where the picket line overall stood on this, it was a 4-2 nod for Lone Star in this one. Myself, Devin Hassan, Kendrick Johnson, and Brian are picking Lone Star, and you and Taylor Ragland siding with the Colony. So
There we go, Taylor.
Let's chalk that up as an L in the picket line for y'all.
Sorry, Colony. I shouldn't have picked you. I'm not very good at this.
And that is our game of the week, as voted on by y'all, the loyal readers and listeners. And sure enough, though, that's just our perspective. We wanted to get the perspective from one of the key players in this matchup. We have mentioned Trey Taylor, the standout defensive back for Lone Star, and Brian had a chance to swing by Lone Star to chat with Trey about Lone Star's season, their terrific defense, and Friday's big game against the Colony. And we will see what Trey had to say after a word from the sponsor.
Let's take a quick break to talk about ATD Painting. Whether it's painting, staining, carpentry, residential, commercial, interior, exterior, ATD Painting has you covered. They have 4 locations in the Metroplex, including Plano and Louisville. You can call 972-694-8888 for more information, or you can visit their website at atdpainting.com. That is ATD Painting. Check it out to see just how affordable professional painting can be. And now, let's get back to the podcast.
All right, I'm here with Trey Taylor, here with Lone Star, here with this legendary defense here in Frisco. Trey, y'all are dominating opposing offenses right now, giving up less than 6 points per game right now. What's been the recipe to the success defensively so far?
Really, it's our defensive coordinator. We do a ton of film watching. I think that's the huge part. And during the practices, it's really like we're going game speed. And our scout team on offense, they do a good job of getting us looks. So we get kind of the game speed before we even play.
Now, y'all graduated some big names last year, guys that are playing some big-time college football. Nick Bolton, headlining those names. Who has stepped up? Because it seems like y'all are, just as good, if not even better, right now as a unit this year without those guys. Who has stepped up in those absences left behind?
Definitely Jalen Ford. He's filled in a huge spot. He moved from outside linebacker to inside linebacker, and he's really commanded the front 7. He's done a really good job with that. We have a cornerback, Elias Hernandez. He's done a good job of locking up one side of the field. So we have a lot of big guys. Our Z Smith, he's awesome on the D-line. He gets the quarterback in a hurry real fast. So we have a ton of guys that stood up.
Now, I like how you didn't mention your name. Pretty humble guy. What do you bring to the table, I should say, to this defense?
Personally, I feel like I can be all over the field wherever coach needs me. I think I'm a big voice in the back end, and I get everything communicated, make sure that we're all lined up correctly. Lock up their top receiver wherever he is. I make sure that he doesn't have a good game, and I like to hit too. So
I heard somewhere that you have 7 blocked kicks this year. Is that accurate? How is that even possible?
In practice, we have a whole 5 minutes just dedicated to that. So we do that almost every day of the week leading up to the game, and we watch film of that kind of stuff against the other teams. So I get a lot of reps at it, and I've become really good at timing the ball. So it's almost expected.
Now, Friday night coming up, you'll have probably the biggest game of the year so far. Undefeated, the Colony. How much are y'all looking forward to this game?
This is a huge game for us. We have a lot of games to play after this, and we always want to be 1-0 after each game. But this game is huge. They're at the top of the district with us, so this is really going to be who is the driver's seat in the district for the playoffs.
Now, they have one of the more explosive offenses in all of 5A in the entire area. They're led by guys, Miles Price and Jaden Abdallah and Keith Miller. The names are endless. What's it going to take to slow those guys down?
They do a good job of getting those key players the ball, but we have a lot of good schemes on defense to handle what they do and to try to get the ball out of their hands. And if the ball does get in their hands, we have ways to really contradict a lot of stuff that they can do against other teams.
Now, in this day and age with Twitter and Instagram and everything, how well do you know these guys?
I know these guys too well. Seen tons of highlight tapes and a ton of smack talk, but it's fine. We'll talk on the field.
Now, off the field, Who is Trey Taylor? Who is Trey Taylor when he's not, busy with school or busy hitting people or blocking kicks on the football field?
Off the field, I'm gonna be with my friends, or I'm gonna be doing something football related, watching football, spending time with my little brothers, 3 little brothers. I love family time. Like getting to bond with them more before I go off to college.
Now, you said you like watching football. Do you have a favorite team, NFL or college?
Favorite NFL team is Cowboys. It's been that since I was born. College team, gotta say Miami Hurricanes, because Ed Reed, my who I look to, played there. So I've been a Hurricane for my whole life.
Thanks again to Trey Taylor for taking the time to chat with Brian for our Student Athlete Spotlight, previewing our game of the week for Week 8 of the high school football season, Frisco Lone Star versus the Colony. Friday, 7 p.m. out at Toyota Stadium. Should be a fun one, as we've spent the last 15-20 minutes discussing. So let's look at 4 more marquee matchups that are on the docket for our coverage slate this week. A big one in District 9-6A. This one is actually Thursday, 7 p.m. out at McKinney ISD Stadium. Prosper versus McKinney Boyd. A matchup that I think at the start of district probably would have had this one circled as being a potential game of the week in 9-6A. But sure enough, this one could very well be a playoff eliminator. You've got Prosper and Boyd both 2-1 in district play. Prosper was able to shake off its loss to Plano East with a help by holding off a late rally by Jesuit last week, and meanwhile Boyd also has a win over Jesuit. So we'll see how this one shakes out. Brian, where did you fall on this matchup for the picket line?
I just can't pick McKinney Boyd after picking them early in the year and then getting burned by them. And I just don't trust them. I know they're playing better as of late. They just walloped on Plano West, but who hasn't walloped on Plano West? No offense. I just don't think they can handle Prosper, and I won't let myself pick McKinney Boyd on the picket line ever again. So until if they beat Prosper, we'll see. But I just don't see that happening.
This is a tough call because Boyd is playing much better football than.
But what's the difference?
I'm with Brian. I'm not buying it.
Is it the cube? Did they figure the quarterback thing out, or because I know they had a carousel at quarterback?
I think they've basically finally figured out their offense was moving the ball just fine earlier in the year. They just weren't. They didn't have the points to match it. They were checking in right around 21, 28 points for an offense that could crack 400 yards. They finally started having a bit more success in the red zone and whatnot, and a lot of it is come down with the run game. They got a very balanced run game with Jatilah Shaw, Christian Ziegler, the quarterback, Colin Drake. They're still doing the 2 quarterback thing with Ziegler and Colin Drake, and it worked just fine last week against Plano West. But so we'll see. I sided with with Prosper in this one too, just because I still am not entirely there yet with Boyd, kind of like you alluded to. I think they both kind of had pretty similar matchups against Jesuits. I don't really put a whole lot of stock into one being more impressive than the other. It's just I'm kind of just still stuck on early season Boyd, and I think this is kind of a performance that will very much validate the strides that they're making if they're able to pull this one out. Sure. But until I see that, I like that Prosper was able to do things like hold Plano East scoreless in the second half after falling behind in that game that they lost. And plus Wayne Anderson is just on an absolute tear right now, and I'm not sure Boyd will be able to slow him down. So I ended up siding with the Eagles in this one.
I won't be surprised if Prosper wins by more than 20 points.
Ditto.
Well, we shall see. This was one that had a 4-2 margin on the picket line. The 3 of us, as well as Devin Hassan, siding with Prosper, Kendrick Johnson, Taylor Ragland taking McKinney Boyd in this pivotal District 9-6A matchup. We got a couple big ones in your neck of the woods too, Justin.
We do.
District 6-6A. Let's look at.
They're all going to be big in this district, to be honest.
Let's look at we talked about on Monday the log jam in second place right now. We'll get a little bit of clarity, and one of the matchups that'll help provide that is Flower Mound hosting Hebron. This one Friday 7 p.m. out at Neil Wilson Stadium. Justin, where do you lean on this matchup between 2 of the best right now?
Well, first I want to mention I'll be out covering this one, so you can check my Twitter, JThomasSCN, for updates. I think this is going to be a good game. I'm leaning and picked the Hawks, but no super confidence there. I think this should be a tight game, a good game. I'm looking forward to it. I guess before you guys throw in a couple cents, kind of interesting. The Hebrons dominated this series. They've won 10 out of 11. They've won 7 in a row, and the last 5 have all been by double figures. So obviously, looking at season results, they've had the quote unquote better team a lot of those times, but still 2 pretty competitive teams. 10 out of 11 is a pretty decisive series lead for the Hawks.
Yeah, I mean, I went with Hebron as well in this matchup. Just kind of liking what they've the ceiling of their offense and their defense for that matter. I think their defense has had a couple pretty impressive performances of late against Coppell and Marcus. I know Flower Mound's got some firepower there on offense. They can sling it around quite a bit. But yes, I too side with the Hawks in this matchup.
So, yeah.
And it was actually, despite the high stakes with Flower Mound being 3-0 in district, Hebron being 2-1, a very tough matchup on paper. But the picket line was a clean sweep in favor of Hebron in this matchup. So
sometimes we're slow to come around on the picket lines.
Oh yeah, definitely.
McKinney Boyd that we just spoke about, but
definitely.
Big game for Flower Mound, 3-0. Virtually. You have to look at the tiebreakers and who knows what's going to happen. But I got to imagine a win here and getting to 4 wins pretty much locks up a playoff spot for them.
Oh yeah,
they're already in the lead. So,
and if you've already picked up head-to-head wins this would be against
Louisville and Hebron.
Potentially Hebron,
that would be huge. So this is a big game for Flower Mound, and of course a win for Hebron would get them back into a tie for first.
Some big stakes out at Buddy Eccles Field at Coppell High School as well on Friday. There's a 7 p.m. kickoff there between the Cowboys and Marcus, and another matchup between two teams that are just mired in that log jam in District 6A. Justin, let's swing it right back to you, man. How you feeling about this one?
Kind of the same way I just described. I guess kind of how I'm going to be describing this district. I don't really know what's going on with the Coppell offense, to be honest.
Yeah.
I've been shilling for the Louisville defense all football season. I think they have a really good unit, but still, I didn't think they would hold Coppell to 6 points.
Were you as shocked as me that they won't beat them 13-6? I saw that score and I couldn't believe it.
I wasn't shocked at all. I was shocked by the 6 points. I wasn't shocked that Louisville won the football game, but I was surprised that they kept them out of the end zone for 4 quarters. So I'm not really sure what's going on with the Coppell offense. They have a great offensive line. You would think that would be at least enough to generate a consistent running game and scoring drives, and at least turn the chains. And you got a kicker that can kick from 60 yards, but that hasn't been the case. I need to find a way to get the ball in the skill players' hands a little more and see what McGill and Jackson and those guys can do. But pretty surprised. And then kind of looking at Marcus, it seems like their offense is kind of picking it up a little bit. I know they only had 20 against Hebron, but that's a good team. And not too many teams have a playmaking tandem of Marcel Brooks and Justin Dinka. That's pretty dynamic right there.
One thing, watching Marcus against Irving Nimitz a couple weeks ago, and one of the reasons why Marcus had so much trouble with Nimitz is because Nimitz has a very physical running game, and they have a really tough time tackling Christian Nelms. I know Coppell's got a pretty physical back of its own right.
Yeah, Ryan Hurt.
So yes, that is a matchup that I think that the Cowboys can potentially exploit. And we talked about it's been a rough few weeks for Coppell's offense. They're averaging just 12.5 points over their last 4 games, but meanwhile the defense only allowing 16.3 points.
Yeah.
Another team and I think that they'll have enough on that end to potentially slow down Dinka and company. And yes, I like Coppell to get the win here.
I could see this being a pretty low scoring game as well, though. Maybe a 20-17, something like that.
Another matchup that was
I think I went with Coppell there too.
Yeah, right? Another matchup that was a clean sweep on the picket line. I mean, it's 6-0 in favor of Coppell. So despite all of this,
those 2 6-6A games are clean sweeps, but they're going to be good tight games. That's kind of surprising, actually.
Yeah, despite the just how neck and neck everybody is, it's no matter whether it's just kind of expected going in that Hebron and Coppell would be the class of that district, and us kind of staying married to that idea. But yeah, nevertheless, a clean sweep for the Cowboys in that one over Marcus, or at least we see it that way. Who knows? Let's see. Let's round this out with a look at a big matchup, a matchup that kind of snuck up on us in 7-5A Division II, especially after last week. Frisco at Denison. This one is Friday, 7 p.m. out at Munson Stadium. The Raccoons looking to build off a signature victory.
Frisco is back. You would have never thought that they were winless last year. 0-10,
They look like a brand new football team.
Oh, they're back. They're so back. Vance Gibson, I know when they won a couple weeks ago. They beat Lebanon Trail, one of the teams I was there. Yeah, Lebanon Trail. They beat them pretty good, and I saw Coach Gibson after the game, and his grin was from ear to ear.
Yeah.
Every time I talked to him last year, it was a depressing mood for obvious reasons.
There's no joy in going 0-10.
Especially after all the years where they're 8-9, win 10 games. Frisco was such a storied program before that, in the playoffs every year. But it seems like they're back, 4-1 in district play. They just destroyed Lake Dallas.
It was a pretty thorough. I mean, I was at the game. It was a very thorough performance. They completely. I mean, they played a very conservative pass coverage, and that just seemed to completely short circuit Lake Dallas's high octane passing offense.
I saw they contained Depperschmidt to less than 60 yards. They threw an interception.
They dominated up front, especially in short yardage situations. It was basically, if I hadn't known the year before that Frisco was 0-10, this would have looked just like any other Frisco team. They controlled time of possession, ran the ball whenever they had to. They played punishing defense. It looks just like a hallmark Frisco Raccoons team.
Yeah, I saw they had 3 guys with at least 10 rushing attempts. And they threw the ball like 6 times or something like that. That's classic Frisco. Classic. Play solid defense, have big guys up front on the offensive line, and run the ball. And then they kind of sneak in a big pass play or two, every now and then to catch the defense off guard. But man, Frisco looks good. They're almost a lock to make the playoffs, because if you're looking at the standings, Broswell 2-2, that's not going to stand. They'll get jumped by either Denison or Lake Dallas. You still have Princeton 1-3, kind of shocking there. But Frisco 4-1. They're in the driver's seat, to be right back in the playoffs after going 0-10 last year.
That being said, I think Denison wins this game.
Oh no!
So Denison has its own. They go from one high-powered offense to another, because Denison has plenty of firepower in its own right. They've scored at least 35 points in all but one game this season. The thing that just thinking back to kind of how, because this one was the toughest game for me to pick, because especially having seen Frisco last week and getting an up close and personal look at just how much better they are this season. I can't help but think that I wonder how much that game was impacted by being played on a Thursday and Lake Dallas having a short week to prepare for a team like Frisco, which, as we've talked about plenty of times in the past, is a very tricky matchup if you just don't see a team like that too often because of that wing T. I wonder how much that might have been impacted. But I counter that by saying Denison's coming off a bye. So they've had a little bit of extra time to prepare for Frisco than normal.
So you're saying they've been watching them and trying to figure out the wing T?
You can never get, any extra time you can get to prep for a team that runs a style of play that you just will never again see, I think that can be to your benefit. And I ended up, that's kind of what it was, a bit of a tiebreaker, I guess, in deciding matchup that I feel like will be very, very, very
I picked
close.
Frisco for 2 reasons. One, because they're really hot right now, and 2, how they were able to bottle up Ryan Depperschmidt, who might be who we were talking at the beginning of the year, probably the best quarterback in the district with Carson Collins and Josh Foskey and stuff. And they were able to make him look, really average, below average, and that's hard to do. It's very hard to do. Depperschmidt's a phenomenal player, phenomenal athlete, and that performance against a really good Lake Dallas offense, that sold me. And I can't pick against Frisco until they, unless they lose big, this week from here on out.
It is a bit of a different team that they're going up against in Denison, whereas Ryan Depperschmidt is just a do-it-all, do-it-all threat. Denison's a team that really kind of prides itself on its run game. Jadarian Price, Kyrie and Ross are both averaging over 6 yards per carry. It's a much different kind of off. So I guess I wasn't sure how because they're not going to be able to play the same coverage that shut down Lake Dallas against Denison. So that too, also had to kind of take that into consideration. So I ended up siding with Denison this one. This was a very tough game for any of us to pick, because this was a 3-3 split right down the middle. Let's see, me, Justin. Sorry, I don't know what that was. Me, Justin, and
me, myself, and I.
Me, Justin, and Kendrick. We are all siding with Denison. Brian, you, Devin, and Taylor are siding with Frisco.
Nothing will surprise me in this game.
Question, Brian. Do you remember Brad Childress? Do you know who that is?
No.
He coached for the Vikings.
The bald guy?
In the Eagles.
I challenge you, if you saw Brad Childress and Coach Gibson in a bar, to differentiate between the two.
Really?
They're doppelgangers.
Oh, Brad Childress is way bigger.
I don't know about their size. I'm just talking about facial.
Vince Gibson, he's a leaner, older gentleman. He's not too tall. I remember Brad Childress being a bigger guy. Maybe that's why.
Let's see.
So that is
identical.
That is your Frisco versus Denison.
To a T.
Yes, okay.
Identical.
That is your Frisco versus Denison preview. And
I'm about to call up Brad Childress later and give him a chat.
So that is a look at some of the bigger matchups that are on our coverage docket this week. As far as what we will be covering, Justin, you already alluded to it. We are going to be on Friday with Hebron versus Flower Mound. Brian, you got the game of the week. Lucky you. You get Lone Star in the Colony. I'm going to be out on Allen. I'm going to cover Allen against Jesuit. Haven't seen the Eagles in a few weeks. One chance just to check up on them, and first chance to see Jesuit, see E.J. Smith, and
be on the lookout for Emmett Smith somewhere in the stands. Yeah, go hang out with him.
I've seen him out, and I've seen his kid go over the pile at the goal line. It's pretty sweet. He's a good leaper like that.
Okay, interesting. We get a highlight or two on Friday against the Eagles. So those are our coverage plans for all of our game stories. You can check them out at starlocalmedia.com. That plus video highlights, rapid reaction podcasts, and that will just about do it for this edition of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast. Justin, Brian, appreciate y'all for swinging by to discuss this game of the week, some other fun stuff we have on the docket. Folks, you enjoy the rest of your week, and we will talk to y'all later.
Thanks for checking out this edition of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast, brought to you by Performance Food Group. Performance Food Group delivers more than 150,000 food and related products to customers all across the country. If you want to get in on that process, PFG just might have a spot for you. Their McKinney office is currently hiring. Job openings include Class A CDL drivers and warehouse order selectors, as well as many other entry and part-time positions. An ideal choice for college students or people just wanting to find new careers in general. For more information, you can visit their website at pfgc.com/careers for more job openings. If you prefer to contact them by phone, you can call at 214-491-3130 for more details. Once again, that is Performance Food Group, located in McKinney at 500 Metro Park Drive.